Hello, everybody. It's time again for five questions with my good friend Louie Navellier, JD here. Louie, it was a fascinating week, a short week in the markets, front and center, and we're going to lead off five questions this week with Greenland and NATO. Specifically, I guess maybe spend some time giving me your thoughts on the narrative there. But I'm curious because of the framework for a deal that Trump mentioned with respect to Greenland, that's going to impact defense stocks. I'm really curious if you have any defense names you can share with the audience.
ESLT, that's Israeli, huge order backlog. HWM, and that's it for now. Those are my two main defense stocks.
Would you
Helmet,
classify Huntington Ingalls in that category?
that's HII. They build a lot of the ships and all. Yeah, they're probably going to build the new battleships. So we'll see that Trump wants. But no, Helmet Aerospace, that's HWM.
And
And
I'm looking at that chart right now, Louis. I want to jump in because if that's a stock you like and you like buying on the dip, it's been down the last 2 days.
yeah,
Um, Maybe a good opportunity to open up a position there.
yeah, they have good forecast sales and earnings growth. And Elbit Systems, ESLT, has an incredible order backlog.
Now, we've traded Elbit previously in Two Sigma trading. Elbit is trading closer to two standard deviations above the mean, so it's just going up, 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 and up. I'm not sure I would open a position here, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And what was the third one? Huntington Ingalls?
Well, you mentioned that. I've been in and out of that before. That's a big shipbuilder.
Yep.
So I don't know if they're building Trump wants to have battleships. So he likes to uh, put things off your coast and intimidate you. So I don't know if that's going to intimidate people or not.
A lot of upset was made over, the Trump approach, which shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. But you got to give the guy
Well,
credit
well,
for increasing the defense
let,
spending of
let's just
NATO.
let's just talk about the EU approach. The
Okay.
EU approach is to have a bunch of elites that are minorities running their countries, and they openly interfere with elections in France. Marie Le Pen controls the parliament, but she's been neutered from being president. They interfere in Poland, Hungary. They interfere with borders. Um, Meloni, the prime minister of Italy, has gotten permission to deport immigrants, and the EU has overridden her. Her one of her lieutenants did not accept an immigrant boat, and they prosecuted him. Okay. Maloney wants to give the gold back to the Italian people. Italy has a third largest gold reserves in the world, and obviously everybody would like to have that gold, and the EU has denied them. So the EU is not a monetary and trade union, as they like to say. They are a political octopus where Brussels is manipulating everybody. And I think all the big city centers in Europe are no longer European. Okay, they're controlled by the immigrants. London, Brussels, I can go on and on. And there's this clash of civilizations underway, and they're losing households, and they've lost. And this you can all thank Ursula, who's a EU president, for mandating all this and letting them systematically destroy their countries. And the rules are just so bizarre. I mean, the fact that you have to give up 30% of your farmland to restore to natural state. So it's hard in the Netherlands because it's underwater. We're supposed to flood the fields, okay? You have to cull your herds, okay, and kill your animals. Remember, the French were spraying manure on French buildings and Brussels buildings. Uh, in Ireland, they finally figured out, oh, we're not going to have a dairy industry because we got to keep killing the cows every year. At least New Zealand figured this out, okay, and pushed back. You can't use chemical fertilizers. So the companies involved in potash or nitrogen are suffering. Okay, you have to use organic fertilizer, which is less productive. But then they just signed this deal with Latin America, where they can import all this food that doesn't play by any of those rules and puts their farmers at a disadvantage. Okay, So I cannot fix stupid. Okay. And,
Right, right.
uh, and we've watched Germany get systematically destroyed, by the Green Party that, shut the nuclear plants down, and they're doing all this alternative energy, which doesn't work this time of year. It does work in the summer. But and we'll see if they keep messing with the AFD party. So the AFD party should finally take over and control things, But coalition governments just don't work. Merz, who's running Germany, was going to put in six big natural gas plants, and the Green Party made him cut it to three. So even when they do the right thing, they're being held up by these minorities. And I'm very sensitive to this because I'm from Berkeley, and Berkeley is leading the natural gas ban in America. They
Hmm.
think methane should just leak out of the ground as it did during the Biden administration when they capped the wells, but they still leak. They think when you fly over North Dakota, they should just be flaring it instead of putting in a pipeline. And it's I just can't fix stupid. And what it is all about, and the reason the Green Movement has failed is there were all these NGOs associated with the Green Movement to enrich their friends. And the thing that is the most frustrating is how anti-tree the Green Movement is, because there's no way to plant trees and enrich yourself. So you have to sequester carbon from a machine and put it in a rock in Iceland. And it was just a money laundering scheme. And that's why it's failed. And now everybody's pushing back. And half of Britain can't pay their electric bill. They have to be subsidized. So, and we are talking before we started that the consumer confidence in Britain has been negative for 10 straight years. So, and there's just nobody to tax anymore. The French tried to tax the wealthy, only got a quarter of the revenue. Keir Starmer chased the wealthy out. Now he has to raise taxes on the middle class.
Well,
You know,
let me jump in here
these guys
because
are screwed.
I think
Trump,
all of your comments are really interesting. What I found fascinating to me, and it's absolutely true, is that the United States for 50 plus years really let itself be used by
yeah,
outside countries.
of
And
course.
Trump, may rub people the wrong way, but he's right when he says, you guys have taken advantage of us, and it's time to push back on that narrative and even reverse it. So,
Not only taking advantage of us, taking advantage of their own people by all the outsourcing. That
right,
was their main message is that, you by going to the lowest cost, you've destroyed your country and your culture. And you're leaving behind a bunch of depressed people that become alcoholics and things. And that is not a good thing. Okay. And
right.
they Trump, Howard Lutnick, Scott Bassett went there to destroy Davos. That was it. That was it. They were there on a mission from God
Oh,
to
yeah.
take it out. And I know Gavin Newsom was very upset, and some of his stuff was canceled. But it's funny. Larry Fink, the chairman of BlackRock, was a co-chair, and he used to embrace ESG, and now he's stuck his tail between his legs on ESG. So um, it's interesting. But yeah, Europe is.
My daughter is actually being recruited by the French bank Agricole. I don't know if
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
familiar with that one, um, but they're big in climate banking. And
Well,
I
I
told
would
her,
have.
I said, you go tell them to flip off."
I would, if I were, if she really wants to work in that world, she should go work she should go to the NC Business School, get an MBA. Half of the derivative traders are from France. There's
Uh-huh.
some, and I have a French name, obviously, and there's something wrong that the French always want to do derivatives. They can't do the normal securities and things. They're a little bit too kinky. So I know so anyway, that's my comment. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
she I think it was the risk and credit risk
yeah, yeah. But if you
division then.
want, well, that's what they do. They create derivatives. And but all this is failed. And no one is buying it anymore. And a good example is I bought a Cadillac. It's a hot rod Cadillac with 680 horsepower. It only weighs 4,100 pounds. If I bought the BMW equivalent of it, it would weigh like 5,500 pounds because they have to make the BMWs hybrids, and that takes all this extra weight. And the
Wow.
BMW has more power, but it can't go around a turn. Okay,
Sure.
because it weighs
Sure.
so much. So look at the damage they've done to the auto industry, and
Yeah. Yeah.
now they can't. A lot of them, like Stellantis, can't pay the fines. They tell them to build more EVs. They can't compete with the Chinese. Even Volkswagen figured that out. They made an alliance with some Chinese EV makers. So they're just going to brand those cars as Volkswagens. And again, they've really hurt themselves. And they're too far up in the hemisphere to do the green stuff. And even in Spain, where they did go heavy solar and all, their grid keeps collapsing because they don't have enough reciprocal energy, which is a turbine turning from either hydroelectric or natural gas. So the Spanish grid keeps going down. So the interesting thing about Europe is when you're there, they control your thermostats. So if you may want to turn up your heat, and you may wonder why they turn it down. It's because they don't have enough heat for you.
Oh, great. Great.
But
One of the other
what do
sectors, Louis, that
you?
I want to talk about with you today, on the heels of a framework, I guess, for a deal with respect to Greenland. We talked about the rare earth and MP materials and Idaho Strategic. Um, the deal with Greenland, is that going to be a positive for those companies, or what's your take there?
Not immediately, because there's not going to be any mining for a long time. The main thing with Greenland is to build this big new missile shield over North America, and it has to be put in Greenland, and so Denmark has to give us permission, and or we have to buy Greenland.
Hmm.
So that's what we have to do. But NATO sent some troops to Greenland to intimidate Trump. That didn't work. Trump made the comment that I'm not sure NATO would come to our defense. They try to reassure him otherwise later. Um, the Canadian Prime Minister is doing deals with China, ignoring the U.S. And of course, the Canadian Prime Minister is Irish, okay, and he was the head of the Bank of England. So he's got his own ties. So it's just a mess over there. It's
Yeah.
I think coalition governments don't work very well because they're always putting a band-aid on everything. You got the whole border problem. You have a country, but you can't control your borders. And then I'm still sticking by my prediction that Italy's going to be the 51st state, because we can just assume their debt. 40% of Americans are Italian. We already have military bases there. But they're just messing with. They're just Brussels should not be running the governance of all these countries. And
Italy would fit in nicely. The founders that drew the original borders for the U.S. They were fascinated by various shapes and sizes, and so the borders of Italy would fit nicely. You draw a map and you put Italy right next to Florida.
yeah, yeah, I like that.
Okay, moving on, Louis. The third topic for this week. Abbott Laboratories were hammered after a disappointing earnings report, and that took down a number of medical device companies. I'm not sure if you own or recommend medical device companies, but as somebody that likes to look at falling knives, I think about, Boston Scientific or Medtronic. We actually opened a Two Sigma trade in ATEC. ATEC is the ticker on that one. Also talked about Glaukos, GKOS. So a lot of interesting things happening in that sector from a falling knife standpoint. And I'm just curious your thoughts on the fundamentals there.
Well, I did sell Boston Scientific a while ago. Their forecast sales and earnings were good. It just wasn't that strong, so I sold it. The good news, Abbott does have a very good surprise history. Their revenues are growing. Sales are supposed to be up 6.1% next quarter. Earnings supposed to be up 6. So that means their margins are pretty steady. They did have a minor analyst trim from 120 to 116 after their announcement. So I don't think this is a big deal. It just shows you have to always surprise and guide higher. And Abbott is just a big boring stock. Okay. And that's my comment. Okay. Now Johnson Johnson's doing a little bit better. They're supposed to have better results. We'll see if they can turn it around. Um,
Well, the dichotomy between Johnson and Johnson and Abbott now, you've got J&J trading two standard deviations above the mean, and Abbott now is a stock I might want to add to my Two Sigma
yeah,
portfolio.
I mean it's like a big boring company. It's no different than 3M or Procter and Gamble. So this is a big multinational that's boring. And
Are
but
there any top of head medical device companies that
I don't have
you'd
any.
recommend?
As you know, Medtronic is in your neck of the woods and buys everybody out and overpays.
That's
Uh,
true.
so um, so just go outside and walk down the street and you'll see them. Okay.
Yeah. In 2026, Louis, one of the leading the way sectors is the small cap space. No surprise, you've been talking about that for the last few months. What I'm curious about, I guess, is with interest rates inching higher, is that problematic for this trend that a lot of momentum people are betting on a rebound in small cap stocks this year?
We are definitely having a January effect. We It's hit all the historical norms. Uh, and I think we're up almost 15% this year in our growth portfolios. We have a lot of small mid caps that are leading the way. But it will get bumpy in February. But small caps are historically better from November through April. I think they'll be okay in May and June too. Small caps are more domestic. The domestic economy is better than once you go outside of America. Um, and so the S&P is going to be held back by the multinationals that just can't grow as fast as domestic companies. So if you want to profit from the economic boom we're having in America, you might want to have a more small cap.
Yeah, and are there any specific names that are jumping out at you on the small cap space?
AGX exploded. Powers. That's PSIX exploded. Those are all stocks that are that are very sensitive to volume.
I've got a name for you that hit my radar. I don't think the fundamentals are very good at all. In fact, I think it scores incredibly low right now in your model, and that's Angie's List, ANGI, as a small cap laggard, if you will, that I think in this kind of economic environment ought to be poised for some really good things this year.
Well, the problem is their sales are forecast to decline 8.3. Earnings are forecasted to be up 437, so that's pretty good. But the analysts just slashed their estimates from 56 cents to 38 cents. And they've missed the last two quarters. So I will be more interested in this when it has a surprise again.
Yeah, and I like to front run you, Louie. So I'm reading the tea leaves on Angie as some of those things that you like to see might be right around the corner on this one.
Yeah, let's hope so.
We'll have to see, wait and see. Okay, final topic for this week, Louie. We have to talk about the Federal Reserve because it looks like the decision has been made, not yet released. There's a dark horse. This Rick Reeder now is uh, apparently Trump was touting him. It is like an episode of the old show Apprentice. Who's going to get the nod, do you think?
Well, I think the problem why they're delaying, other than Trump controls the news media, is that they really do want Powell to resign. Because if they get Powell to resign, they can keep Steve Moran in. Okay.
Yep,
Who's Mr. I want to cut 150 basis points. And obviously they're trying to get Lisa Cook off too, which is why they had the Supreme Court hearing. So they can appoint a new Fed guy, but then they lose Steve Moran. Okay. And what we need is we need Fed folks that have good economic models, okay, like a Christopher Waller. So whether it's Christopher Waller, Kevin Hassett, uh, Kevin Wash, or the new guy from BlackRock, we'll see. But the other thing is, let's just say next week, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce announce their wedding date. Well, Trump won't be able to control the news media because they'll just go nuts on that for like 2 weeks. Okay. And and um and then he'll have to then he'll say it because he needs to make a big splash with this Fed chairman. He needs to get congressional approval. And no, just like he did with the at Davos, he's going to do a shock and awe. Trump is our shock and awe president,
he sure is.
and so I think there's a severe risk of deflation because housing, you can't sell a home unless you discount it, and so there's an inventory issue as well as finance, insurance, and then uh, we are reporting deflation from China. The biggest thing that's dropped in the last 12 years is TVs at 6.7%. So I don't know if you're aware, but TCL and Sony are getting married, and TCL makes the micro LED TVs. And when you look at the OLED companies, LG, Samsung, Sony, their high-end TVs are now micro LED, and sometimes they call it RGB LED. But the TCL has built the biggest plant in the world for this, and Sony's going to team up with them. And that's why when you go into Costco, you can get a 98-inch TV for $1,300. Okay. And
Wow.
uh, so it just shows that, do we put tariffs on China? Yeah. But they take over industries and they dominate, and they still can make them cheaper than everybody else. So cheap that the Japan Sony has surrendered to, well, they haven't surrendered it'll be 51% owned by TCL and 49% owned by Sony. That's the framework they have right now. So we're going to have deflation, and we're going to get it in our appliances, consumer appliances. We're going to get it in from our innovative retailers, the Costco's, the Walmarts, etc. We're going to get it from lower crude oil prices, which lower transport costs, and we're going to get it because the rest of the world is stopped growing. Where your daughter is, they have 23 million people in Taiwan. 4 decades, they'll have 10 million people. So it's really hard for any place to grow when you shrink. And as innovative as Taiwan is, even they're going to be fighting growth.
Interesting. I was just texting with my daughter this morning. There's a big Netflix live event tonight, Saturday morning in Taiwan. A climber is going to scale the skyscraper there without ropes.
Yeah, well, I think that's tragic when he falls. Okay.
I, I mean,
Uh,
they're doing it live. I can't believe if something ha were to happen. My God, the Netflix audience is going to be in for a horror show. My
I guess.
daughter didn't even want to go. She's concerned that the guy's gonna fall.
Oh yeah, it's not going to end up well. You know what I mean? So I don't think he'll suffer. You know what I mean? Uh,
It'll
but
be over quickly. Yeah,
no, he'll break like a melon. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So that
yeah,
happened.
yeah.
So
I'm
yeah,
pretty sure if that was me, I'd be dead before I hit the ground.
yeah. I don't know, but
My heart
all
would
I can tell
explode.
you is Netflix says didn't rally in the wake of its earnings. They have to spend a lot of money. They're doing the sports stuff, and the streaming is very poor. They can't get the bandwidth to stream,
Right,
so they
right.
have to beef up their own stuff. Because the sports people like 4K and all that stuff.
I didn't like Netflix's earnings whatsoever, and I've got a Two Sigma trade in the stock, debating what to do with it. But I'm concerned that they're not using their monopolistic power intentionally because they don't want to be viewed as a monopoly when it comes to get approval for the Warner Brother deal.
Well, if the deal goes to Paramount instead of Warner Brothers, they do get a few $1 billion.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I think
Well,
it's going to
they get
Netflix.
an exit payment, so we'll see if that how that
That would actually be the better outcome. And then
yeah.
the sooner they get beyond this, they can start raising prices again. Uh, a trade we're going to open in Two Sigma today. Spotify was just upgraded the price target at Goldman. They lifted it to $700, Louis, last night after the market closed. And uh, Spotify and Netflix are very similar, but they're dissimilar in that Spotify is jacking up their prices. They've increased their prices several times since the last price increase for Netflix.
Understood.
Yeah, so I don't know what Netflix is doing. They're sitting on their hands with a lot of power, and they're just not using it right. I'd be a front, be nice if I had the power, right, to force a proxy on the board because they're just not running the company very well right now.
Got it.
All right, I'll leave it at that. Louis, thanks as always for joining me. Five questions with Louis ends now. We'll be back next week with more topics and fun conversation. This is JD for Fireside Trader. Take care, everybody, and thank you, Louie Navellier, and we'll see you all next time.